The director of the U.S. Secret Service has resigned. Vice President Harris seems to have gained enough delegates to top the ticket for the Democratic Party. President Biden is scheduled to travel back to the White House this afternoon. Oh, and there is a Fed meeting next week. Let's get you ready for what the Fed might decide.
Live from the last possible second via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk This Morning. We'll begin with a conversation with Dr. Vince Malanga from LaSalle Economics. Then it's a much-needed extended conversation with Pro Farmers Policy OG Jim Wiesemeyer. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
Hey, Davis, thank you so much. Welcome to AgriTalk. Today is a great example of what you have to do sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes you just got to go to the aces. And that's exactly what we are doing today. We've got the Fed meeting coming up next week. There's all kinds of speculation about what the Fed is going to decide to do with interest rates. So let's get Vince on here and try to bottom line it. Okay? And then the headlines, the news. It just continues to flush out of the nation's capital, and we need to figure out exactly what it all means for us going forward. And Jim Wiesemeyer, Pro Farmer Policy Analyst, nobody does it better than Jim, so we're going to get him on here and break it all down. Sound good?
You're bringing in the aces. You know, I always say life is a gamble, a game we all play. You need to save something for a rainy day. Am I right?
Yeah,
You've got to have an ace in the hole.
Right.
You've got to have an ace in the hole, and today is that day. We got two of them, baby.
We're breaking them out. Breaking them out. 76 degrees and sunny, heading for some clouds this afternoon and the potential for some storms again later this evening. What's your like?
Here in the Constantinople of the Midwest.
The Constantinople.
79 degrees and sunny on our way to 87 degrees.
You know, if you can do that, I think I'm going to start saying here in the Mile Wide City.
Ooh, I like that.
You like it? Here
I like
in the Mile Wide City, it is 76 degrees. And a little bit of filtered sun out there. We've got lots of smoke back in the atmosphere.
Here we go with the smoke.
It's there. It's there again. I mean, I'm still looking for the answer. I've still got the question out there to some agronomists trying to figure out what impact did the smoke have a year ago. I'm not getting a lot of thoughts or answers on it, and we've got the smoke rolling back in. Okay, let's get to it. Let's get to the news.
Yeah, let's start with the weather. Dangerous heat will persist over portions of interior California, the Great Basin, and the northern Rockies through Thursday. Heat will gradually spread into the northern plains today across the western Gulf Coast. Heavy to excessive rainfall will persist through midweek. Additionally, the southwest monsoon will continue to bring a flash flooding threat to the Four Corners region this week. Oh, you know I love this, when there are new weather words that just sort of come out of nowhere. Here, this, just in a new climate pattern. The Southern Hemisphere Circumpolar Wave Number 4 pattern has been discovered near New Zealand and Australia, affecting the entire southern hemisphere. Unlike El Nino, which begins in the tropics, this pattern originates in the mid-latitudes. Chip, look out for that southern hemisphere circumpolar wave number 4 pattern.
Okay, I've got to send an email over to the guys at BAM-WX, Michael Clark, Kirk Hans, Brett Waltz.
Hit them up.
Because this sounds very familiar to something that they have been talking about for the past, since I've known them, that is part of their proprietary forecasting model. Okay? Maybe people have put an official name on it. Well, I got to reach out to the guys. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've got some highlights from USDA's crop progress report, updated as of July 21. Corn, 67% good to excellent, back a point from last week. 61% silking, 17% dough. That dough stage at 17% compares to 11% on average. Soybeans, 68% good to excellent, unchanged on the week. 65% blooming compares to 60% on average, and 29% setting pods. That's ahead of the 24% average on corn and beans, Chip. Not too shabby so far.
Yeah, it's moving right along.
Yeah.
And it, as should be expected, we've had some. It's been a mix of above normal and seasonal, and as you would expect, a mix of temperatures to get us to something that's pretty average, and that's the corn and the soybean crops are running just ahead of average on development. Makes a lot of sense.
Well, on spring wheat, they're 77% good to excellent. That's unchanged on the week. I don't get this. 89% headed compares to 90% on average, so we're just slightly behind on the headed there. Cotton, 53% good to excellent, 81% squaring, 42% setting bowls. Winter wheat, 76% harvested compares to 72% on average. Anything more on those last three there?
Things are moving right along.
They sure are. Well, the Wheat Quality Council's annual HRS tour through North Dakota, along with far western Minnesota and far northern South Dakota, kicks off this morning. We'll highlight scout reports throughout the week.
Yep.
Private exporters reported sales of 200,000 metric tons of corn for delivery to unknown destinations during the 24-25 marketing year. And
starting to build a book on the
here.
new crop corn. Yeah, starting to build a book on the new crop corn shipments. That's good news.
I like that. A crop consultant, Dr. Michael Cordonnier, raised his U.S. corn yield forecast to 181.5 bushels per acre as weather has been favorable for pollination, and he doesn't see any threatening conditions in the near-term forecast. That increased his production estimate to 14.97 billion bushels. Cordonnier left his soybean yield and production forecast at 52 bushels per acre for a crop of 4.39 billion bushels. Chip, that corn crop at 14.97, that might as well be a 15 billion, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that's kind of the number that a lot of people are anticipating at this point, maybe just over 15 billion bushels. The bean market this morning is doing a nice job of building on to yesterday's gains. We'll talk to Brian Grady about that at the bottom of the hour.
We'll chip some livestock news for you. Last week's average cash cattle price dropped 57 cents to 193.67. That's the lowest level since mid-June. Meanwhile, the CME Lean Hog Index up another 9 cents to 89.80 as of July 9th. That's the sixth straight daily gain for the CME Lean Hog Index. The House on Monday passed the Water Resources Development Act aimed to fund and study water resources projects nationwide. These projects focus on navigation, hurricane and storm damage risk reduction, flood control, and ecosystem restoration. Additionally, the bill mandates the Army Corps of Engineers to conduct 161 feasibility studies emphasizing drought resiliency and water conservation. 161 Army Corps of Engineers studies, Chip. I don't know if that. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. No. Well, and finally here, U.S. District Judge William Young in Boston has largely upheld Massachusetts' Q3 pork law, rejecting an industry-backed attempt to block its enforcement. The law, known as the Prevention of Farm Animal Cruelty Act, bans the sale of pork from pigs kept in tightly confined spaces. The judge determined that Massachusetts law merely bans the sale of non-compliant pork meat and does not regulate slaughterhouse operations directly, Chip.
Well, it does because it affects how the pork is going to move into other states. It can't even transport through Massachusetts on its way to its end market. It's just crazy. All right, we got Vince Malanga coming up next. We're talking economy.
Do you suffer from talking on the radio phobia? No problem. Send us a tweet at #AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you are with us. We've got a Federal Open Market Committee meeting coming up next week, July 30th through the 31st, trying to figure out exactly what the Fed might do as regarding interest rates, monetary policy coming out of that Fed meeting. Let's break it all down with Dr. Vince Malanga, president of LaSalle Economics. Vince, it's great to talk with you again. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Chip?
Doing just fine, Vince. Let's start with the job market, if you would. What's the status? How's the conditions?
Well, the job market is weakening. It's not that it's absolutely weak, but it's certainly softening. We've seen a fairly consistent uptrend in jobless claims. The quit rate is down, meaning people are less secure in their jobs. Consumer confidence is down. And, of course, we've had 2 consecutive months now where the unemployment rate's above 4%, and very likely, I suspect, we'll have a third consecutive month when the number is released a week from Friday.
Okay. We've seen an uptrend in the jobless claims. But what about on the non-farm payrolls? Is job growth expansion adequate, and the sectors, and what's the deal with the downside revisions to the past numbers?
Yeah, my favorite, I prefer the household survey to the payroll survey.
Okay,
And the household survey has shown essentially no growth in employment all year. And when you look at aggregate hours worked, there's been very little growth in aggregate hours worked over the last 3 months. Payroll data can reflect multiple job holders. The samples are screwed up. And so I take them with a grain of salt, even though the market pays a lot of attention to it.
Yeah, that's the problem. The market does pay a lot of attention to the jobless, or excuse me, to the new.
Well, at least initially, anyway. Whether
yeah,
I would say it doesn't pay as much attention, and for a shorter period of time as used to be the case. Let's put it that way.
Okay. What about participation in the jobs? Are there a lot of people out there that just are people that should be working? Are they back to work?
Well, the funny thing is the participation rate has gone up, and that's been one of the reasons why the job market or the unemployment rate has gone up a little bit. But strangely enough, in the last 2 or 3 months, the participation rate among young workers aged 20 to 24 has actually gone down. And not quite sure why. It could be that the job prospects for new entrants into the labor force are not that great, and so as a result, people are sort of dropping out of the labor force, whether to take a trip to Europe or someplace, or to go to graduate school or whatever. But it's been surprising to see a drop in the participation rate among the young workers like that.
People working longer?
No, there's no evidence of that. The work week's been pretty stable, and in fact, when the economy is starting to soften the way it is, generally what happens is that the work week actually declines or shrinks. And of course, you have a lot of other things going on. You take the great state of California, which has raised the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour, and this kind of nonsense. And if anything, that's causing employers to cut back on the hours worked of their employees. So there's no evidence of people working longer, but there is evidence of people working multiple jobs in order to maintain living standards and the like.
Okay. What's the status of inflation? Is it close to what the Fed would like to see?
Oh, I think it's, inflation is coming down. I don't think we'll see evidence of that in the next report. But I think by October, November, you could be in a situation where they finally got, if not at their target of 2%, pretty darn close to it.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean too much, because from their own rhetoric, that's one factor that they're considering. But what they really like to see is the persistence of declining inflation rather than just 1 or 2 numbers. My sense is, though, that the economy is going to be soft enough that they'll be looking for excuses to cut interest rates in here over the next 6 months. Okay.
All right. I want to get we'll come back to that and talk about that a little bit more. There's inflation and then there's affordability. How does affordability factor into the Fed's thoughts?
Well, of course, affordability and housing affordability is gone off the rails, and so that's one of the reasons why the housing market is so weak. Certainly, the Fed, is looking at that stuff, but they're really looking at the overall economy and looking now. They up until recently, it was just inflation. All that mattered to the Fed was inflation.
Yeah.
And they were sort of ignoring the economy. But now I think you're clearly seeing a shift in emphasis, and at least, and it'll be evident from the meeting on July 31st and the post-meeting press conference, that they're giving equal importance now to the condition of the economy as well as inflation.
Okay. All right, so what is your bottom line for the July 30-31 FOMC meeting?
Well, my bottom line is that they should cut rates on July 30-31, but short of some, external event here in the next week, they won't. But they'll certainly lay the groundwork and talk much more confidently that they're moving toward their target, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that'll become clear both in the statement and in the post-meeting press conference. And then the keynote address will be from the chair back in the latter part of August, when he gives his annual Jackson Hole, Wyoming speech at the Kansas City Fed Symposium. And I think he'll lay out the scenario by which they can cut rates in September and probably cut one or two more times before the end of the year.
Okay. All right, sticking with that. That's been your expectations for quite some time, that we would see 2 to 3 interest rate cuts before the end of the year, probably in the second half of the year. So you're not seeing anything to change your course.
No, of course, I've been of the opinion that they should have eased earlier, rather than waited so long. And the problem they're going to be facing now, when they cut, if they cut in September and beyond, is the political, how they're interfering with the political process. And certainly the Republicans are going to be yelling and screaming that why are they waiting until the election to hold off on cutting rates? And the Democrats are going to be saying that they haven't cut fast enough because they're seeing a deterioration in the labor market now, and they don't want to see that. So the Fed has gone to great lengths to say that they're above the political fray, and instead what they've done is they've got themselves more involved in it.
Yeah. All right. You said absent of any external events. Well, I don't know if we could have had more external events. What was your reaction to the Trump assassination attempt, Vince? Just unbelievable.
I tell you the honest truth. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I kind of thought that something like this there was some probability of this at some point, and there may be a further attempts, and I hope not. But certainly, he was lucky that literally dodged a bullet, and lucky for the country that he dodged a bullet. And boy, if the security perimeter isn't widened and tightened after this event, then you really got to question what the hell these nitwits are doing in Washington.
Yep, that's right. What do you think of Vice President Harris's chances against Trump?
Well, I have no idea. The only thing I will say is it's going to be very difficult for her to separate herself from the policies of the Biden administration. And, when you consider the fact that she was what was it, the border czar? She was supposed to be in charge of getting things straightened out in the border. And, that certainly didn't happen. She was certainly defending the president over the past year in terms of his cognitive impairments and the like. And now all of a sudden, because they're afraid they're going to lose seats in the House and Senate, they all decided that he's cognitively impaired. And so I think she's got to answer those questions. But, I will say on the other hand, certainly the age factor has been removed, if not changed to the shifted. And the other thing I think you got to consider, she's never lost an election. She won 3 elections in California. She won the senatorial seat, and she won the vice presidency. And so she's got a good track record.
That's right. That's right. Good perspective, Vince. Thank you so much. Vince Malanga, LaSalle Economics. We've got Jim Wiesemeyer coming up next.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from ProFarmer.
Joining us now, ProFarmer editor Brian Grady. Beej, the soybean market is doing a nice job of building onto yesterday's gains.
Yeah, absolutely, Chip. Anywhere from about 7 to mostly 12, 13 cents higher here at mid-morning. And so, like you said, pretty solid follow-through buying. We're seeing funds cover more short positions. And so sometimes you don't really need any real reason other than that they were record short and decided to cover up some of those short positions. But the strength isn't only in soybeans, so we're seeing a little bit of strength in meal and soy oil as well, but also across the corn and wheat markets here at mid-morning.
Yeah, corn it's getting better as the day goes on, the gains in the corn market, isn't it?
Yeah, so trading right at session highs basically at the moment, and so about 6 cents higher, and like you said, buyer interest is starting to build. We'll have to see if that's sustained through the day, and if we can end with a high range close, then you've got more than just trading at high range here at mid-morning.
Right, gotcha. All right, take us over to the livestock trade.
We're seeing some strength in the live cattle market and feeder cattle as well here at mid-morning. So, they're starting to see buyer interest build somewhat there, trading near their session highs as well. And so pretty solid price action at mid-morning. The hog market trading sharply to the upside, and cash fundamentals are firming there. We've had 6 straight days of gains in the cash hog index. The pork cutouts at the highest level we've seen since back to last fall, and so fundamentally there's some reasons there, but traders are also covering up some short positions in the hog market.
Good stuff, Brian. Thank you so much. ProFarmer editor Brian Grady here on Markets Now.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. Knowledge is power. We're here to charge your batteries. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you're with us. Good conversation there with Vince Malanga from LaSalle Economics. Has not backed off of his thoughts that we're going to see some interest rate cuts before the end of the year. And despite the Fed's efforts to stay out of the political fray, they're only allowing themselves to be pulled deeper and deeper into it. I guess that's no surprise. The political fray. We've got so much ground to cover. Jim Wiesemeyer, ProFarmer policy analyst, joins us right now. Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. We just had Biden announce that he will address the nation Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern time, on the reasons why he resigned.
Okay. I want to dig into that, and we are going to. But let's start with Cheadle. The director of the Secret Service announced this morning that she is resigning.
Yeah, most people thought that after seeing the hearing, where it was a disaster for her, that she would resign by the end of the week. She resigned today.
Yeah. I've seen people joke about this a little bit, but I want to take it from a this is it. I don't want to joke about this when I say this, and I'm not making light of it. One thing that we said that we would see after the failed assassination attempt on former President Trump was that we hoped that it would unite the country, that it would unite the parties, and there was definite bipartisan efforts to get Cheadle to leave the position. That's fair to say, right?
Absolutely. And her testimony yesterday, she was probably told what she could say, and it wasn't much. So
By
she
who?
shouldn't have gone. She just should have resigned.
Who told her?
You wonder. Well, who's
Yeah.
running our foreign policy? Who's running this? Who's running that, etc. But I will add, Chip, that we had a bipartisan task force announced by the House Speaker, Johnson, and Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, of a task force on the attempted assassination of Trump.
Well, okay, that's fine, but and that's good. That's good, but
subpoena. Yeah.
The question is, who told her what she can and can't say? She was the director of the Secret Service.
Yeah.
If she wanted to answer the questions, especially if she had even a thought that this is the last time I'm going to have to go up on Capitol Hill, why didn't she answer the questions?
These are all the continuation of question marks most Americans have of late with the attempted assassination, more questions than answers. Obama's Secret Service director, I think his name, Jen Johnson, he was on CNN last night, and I thought he was really good. He was even confused on some of the either responses or what happened in Pennsylvania. So it'll be curious if they tap him.
Yeah, the lack of responses from Cheadle what it did was it just raised more questions in my mind of who is calling the shots. And did Joe Biden? I mean, there's only one person, right? Well, I guess it couldn't Ray get in Cheadle's ear and say, "Listen, you don't want to answer this, you don't want to answer that." The director of the FBI
or national security, etc. And this administration appears to be a committee administration on a host of things, Chip, especially foreign policy. Yeah.
Right. And Mayorkas is another one here that could have gotten into her ear and said, listen, don't answer these questions. But I don't understand
Stonewall,
why.
Like he usually does.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he does at hearings,
that's
to
exactly
be blunt.
Right. Okay, so what do you make of all of that? What do you make of the hearing? What does it tell us? What are the signals?
That you need a task force that have subpoena power, which they do now, because frankly, and I really hate to say that, you can't believe the FBI, you can't believe the Justice Department, you can't believe the CIA anymore. That's sad, but it's true.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it is sad, and I think it is true that that's the state that we find ourselves in here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable. So we now have President Biden, who you said is going to address the nation on Wednesday night. In the meantime, it appears that Vice President Harris has the delegate count gotten high enough now that she will be at the top of the ticket?
Definitely. I'm not sure many things in this town any longer, but that I am. AP had a story late last night, early this morning, say that she's in. She's the presumptive candidate. I think it'll be announced August 7th officially, Chip. That's the word this morning. And then their convention, the 17th, begins in Chicago. Yeah, she definitely will be the Democratic nominee.
August 7th, because that is the deadline to get on the ballot, correct? In some states.
Yes, I would think so. In some states, yes.
Yeah. There's some speculation that the deadline is already passed in some states, but I don't think that's right, is it?
No. And that's the Republicans should not that'd be a fool's errand. Fool's gold, Chip, to go on this avenue. That would be wasted time, wasted money, etc. Get on with it. She is the nominee.
Yeah. What an amazing turn of events, Jim. You and I haven't even talked since this happened. And the end of last week, the Democrats were doing everything that they possibly could to avoid that's the word that I'm looking for. To avoid putting Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket, and now we can't get her there fast enough.
Yeah, well, you get Obama and Pelosi working behind the scenes.
Exactly.
They usually get what they want, and they got what they want, period.
Are we sure? Are we sure that this is what Obama wants? Are we sure that this is what Jeffries and Schumer wants? I see that Pelosi has thrown her support behind VP Harris, but has Obama, Jeffries, and Schumer?
Well, Obama's taking his time. Schumer and Jeffries will come out probably any day now, Chip, in favor of it.
Okay.
I think Obama, I'm not quite sure. I don't think he was an avid supporter of Harris. He wanted a more open convention, but he's not going to get it. He's just not going to get it. And you saw most of the other potential nominees just almost immediately came out and supported Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it's because they want the job, but they don't want to run in 2024.
Yeah, they want to be set up for 2028. Yeah,
yes,
that's true. That's true.
That's exactly why they ran to Harris on this.
Yeah, now they'll take a VP ticket, I think.
Yes,
a number of them. Yeah, because the latest word on that, the donors are saying they're closing in on Shapiro from Pennsylvania governor, Kelly, senator from Arizona, or Cooper, governor of North Carolina. At least that's the conjecture in this town right now.
Okay. Boy, we need to break down some of this, but let's start with Harris. What would we expect under a President Harris?
See, here's what listeners should know. Why do we even talk about this so much? The reason is that the issues, the policy positions, and there are a world of difference between a Harris administration potential or a Trump administration. That's why this is so important once it comes to energy policy, tax policy, immigration policy. Trade policy is the degree of trade protectionism. That's why we're focusing on this.
Yep. See, that's why I don't think it's going to be Shapiro out of Pennsylvania. Fracking is a $5 billion business in Pennsylvania. And Harris is absolutely 100% against fracking.
Yeah, Shapiro is very popular in Pennsylvania. He could probably bring him to state, though, Chip. He could. He's that popular in that state.
Seriously?
That's just me. So, yeah.
Willing
Kelly
to throw a $5 billion
Arizona
business to the curb.
Well, why is he governor?
Is Shapiro against fracking that much?
Now that I would have to check, but he would, I'll check more into that. But they absolutely need Pennsylvania. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cooper, North Carolina.
Did anybody just experience the fastest 12 minutes in radio like I did? Holy smokes. I cannot believe that time is by us that fast. Okay, Jim, you can stick around, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good. Jim is coming back for the final segment of this Tuesday edition of AgriTalk. Jim Wiesemeyer, Pro Farmer Policy Analyst on AgriTalk.
The chickens have come home to roost. Find out whose fence they're perched on today on AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. We are into the final segment of today's show. We got Jim Wiesemeyer, Pro Farmer Policy Analyst, trying to break down everything that has happened and why it is important to agriculture going forward. Jim, okay, Shapiro and fracking.
I've got his position. Position on fracking. He supports responsible fracking, rather than calling for an outright ban, Chip. He always says he wants to balance energy production with environmental protection. Uh, he supported the new regulations on fracking that included requiring disclosure of chemicals used in the fracking, improving methane emissions, strengthening the drilling waste protections, and he supports enhancing pipeline corrosion protection. So you can see that's middle of the road in this position.
Well, I would think that would disqualify him from being Harris's pick.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I'll tell you, my personal favorite is the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear.
Okay.
He's, if you hear him, you think you're listening to a Republican.
And he brings a fair number of electoral college votes with him.
I don't know whether he can get Kentucky, though.
Oh.
Because Trump won it by 20 points.
Well, then that would be a wasted pick, wouldn't it?
It could.
What about Kelly?
Yes.
Kelly,
then you have a problem with the Senate who replaces him. See, even though the governor there, it would be a Democrat for the future. For the future, they might lose one. So that might mean Cooper from North Carolina, where that could be a potential pickup there for the Democrats.
Okay. Boy, it's she's got a short period of time to make this decision.
Oh, absolutely. I think she'll make it pretty soon. Apparently they're vetting 7 different people, but 3 of the ones, the conjecture is it's down to those 3. We'll see if that's correct.
Yeah. If they're going to hustle through this, what are the odds that they get it right? And then, like Vince said in the conversation that we had earlier in the show, Jim, Harris is going to be tied to all the Biden policy snafus that have happened during the Biden-Harris administration, right?
Absolutely. Vince is spot on, and this is what election gurus are saying. Larry Zabato and people of that ilk, the so-called election experts. But initially, she's trying to out-Trump Trump in being, hitting the personality. She says she'll be the prosecutor and he's the felon and things like that. They don't want to talk positions right now. Eventually, it's going to come down to policies. Look at the policies and let the voter vote.
Right. And the left, even the further left on some issues, I guess, than Harris. I'm thinking about 1,500 inmates that she kept in California prisons longer than, the recommended sentencing that were up on drug charges.
Yeah, she is more liberal. She's more liberal than Joe Biden. Period.
Yeah, and she evidently was willing to. I'll just say it. Evidently, she was willing to lie to us about the condition, the condition of the president to stay in, and she's telling us right now. Yeah, she's telling us right now he's okay to serve out his term, but he's not okay to run. I don't know how
she's going to have to answer that. Yeah.
Have you?
She's going to have to answer that, and that's why it's going to be important when Biden tells us Wednesday, why did he leave the race? Why?
Right. Jim, you've been saying since March that you didn't think that it would be Biden. As a matter of fact, you've been saying it
for
longer
over
than that.
A year.
You
over a year in my speeches.
Fall.
Yes.
So who do you really? I mean, is it really going to be Harris?
Oh, yeah, it'll be Harris. That's the nominee. Absolutely.
I'm surprised.
She's got the delegates.
Surprised.
Yeah, she's got the delegates.
I'm really surprised.
And maybe that didn't go the way Obama wanted behind the scenes. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your what's your new line on the presidential race then? Is it Harris over Trump or Trump over Harris?
Watch your three states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. 3 states. That's it. And it's going to be closer than it would have with Biden because of the age and acuity issues. So it's going to be close. I mean, we are in a 50-50 nation, and it's going to be closer, as I keep saying, than it would have been between Trump and Biden.
Does this change the outlook for the down ballot, the House and the Senate races?
It could. It could. Now, I haven't talked to my good friend David Wasserman of late regarding the House. I think the Republicans would still gain the Senate, but the House, I want to see if he shifts. This could improve some chances for those districts who lost in districts that Biden won. So I think it's a jump ball now in the House, Chip.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It just talk about a hot potato. Wow.
It's enthusiasm. You'll get more Democrats to vote now than they would have otherwise. Yep,
I think that's exactly right. It's going to get there will be a boost in the enthusiasm for the Harris ? Ticket. I don't think there's any question about that. Jim, good stuff, buddy. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you again on Friday.
Okay.
All right, Jim Wiesemeyer, Pro Farmer Policy Analyst. Wow, come back this afternoon. We're going to have a conversation on the markets and this rally that we've got going on in the soybean market with Clark Neighbors from BIS Commodities. We got a farmer forum coming our way tomorrow here on AgriTalk.